This is Research Like a Pro, episode 308, DNA Tools at WikiTree with Emmaline MacBeath. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogist professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the authors of Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide. With Robin Worthland, they also co-authored the companion volume, Research Like a Pro with DNA. Join Diana and Nicole as they discuss how to stay organized, make progress in their research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go! Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to Research Like a Pro.
Hi, Nicole. How are you today?
Really well. I'm having just such a great time finishing up my DNA project for the study group, and I've learned a lot about the different Dyers and the Dyer Y-DNA surname project, so it's been wonderful. How about you?
Oh, I am just working my way through my to-do list and my research plan and looking forward to actually writing up all of my research. I have a lot of thoughts going around in my head, and I want to get them down on paper and see if they make sense. That's why we like reports, right?
Right. It's so nice to write it all up.
Yep, I'm ready to do that. Well, for our announcements today, we have our Airtable guides available on our website, and these come in two varieties. One is Airtable Research Logs for Genealogy, and it's the second edition with all the latest updates. And then we have Tracking DNA Matches with Airtable. So if you're interested in using Airtable for your research, these are really, really helpful. We have our Research Like a Pro webinar for June coming up, and it will be the Oliver case using deductive reasoning with British parish records with Jessica Morgan, which will be a wonderful case study about using parish records, such as the parish chest and different records that we don't use as often. And then we have our Research Like a Pro study group beginning August of 2024. And if you're interested in being a peer group leader, the application is on our website, and we'd invite you to apply. And then we're excited about our AI workshop, July 29th through August 1st. This will be 2 hours every morning for 4 days, and Nicole and I will be teaching you how to use artificial intelligence to make researching like a pro more efficient. And we're excited to share with you. We'll have activities for you to practice, and we hope you will join us. So registration is now open, and you can find that on our website.
Today, we're delighted to have a guest with us from WikiTree, and her name is Emmaline MacBeath. Hi, Emmaline.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on today. And I will share a little bit about Emma. Emma is a genetic genealogist dedicated to finding birth parents for individuals, searching for them, and reconnecting enslaved ancestors with their descendants. Her goal is to reconnect all 10 plus million enslaved ancestors. Additionally, Emma is an author of young adult and middle grade fiction, writing under the pen name Emmaline Rose. Her passion for genealogy began at the age of 12, long before the era of the internet, and deepened with the advent of everyday DNA testing. She operates under the business names Emmaline Rose Books and Missing Link DNA. Originally from Northern California and having lived in several other locations, Emma now resides in Washington with her 2 sons. Her spare time is filled with more genealogy and writing, alongside reading and spending time with friends and family. Well, we're just so excited to talk with you today, and this is an episode that I've been wanting to do for a long time because ever since I stumbled upon some of the DNA features at WikiTree, I've really liked them. So thanks for coming to talk with us about this.
And DNA is one of my very, very favorite things to talk about. So I'm very excited to talk about it today.
Well, we are going to definitely have some fun then, because we love talking about DNA as well. Can you tell us how you got started with family history and this love for genetic genealogy?
It's funny. I think the interest in family history was literally in my DNA. It's something that both sides of my family have always done. And I think it's partly because I have LDS ancestors on both sides of my family, and genealogy is very important to them. So as a kid, I saw family on both sides doing genealogy, and it was just natural for me to do it. But it was so hard back then because, we didn't have the internet. And I would have to send a letter to a vital records office and ask them if they could do a search and send a check. And I might or might not get a result. 3 months later. And now we just go online and boom, we have the record right there. And it's funny, I came to WikiTree and DNA about the same time around 2016. And it's like my world I was like a kid in a candy store for the first time. That's when I decided to become a professional because this whole new world of genealogy was just open. It's so much more enjoyable now than when I was a kid, for sure.
Oh, that's so true. And I remember my parents doing the same thing. They wrote the letters and sent for the documents and whatever. But by the time Nicole and I started, we had a few more things online, like censuses, but we still did
Mhm.
a fair share of sending off for things. And so now it is really wonderful. So, when did you take your first DNA test?
I wanna say it was probably 2016. That's when I came to WikiTree, and I know they happened about the same time, and when I got my results back, I automatically understood the power of what I was looking at and what I could do with the DNA, and I taught myself how to use it and how to find birth parents. I joined a project on WikiTree called Adoption Angels, where we help find birth parents for people, and that's where I got in the trenches practice of using those new skills, and it just went from there.
Wow, cool. Well, tell us, what is the mission of WikiTree and how did the DNA features that WikiTree has help with that mission?
I'd say that there's kind of two overall missions of WikiTree. There's many missions, but I think there are two. One is to crowdsource genealogy, which basically means everybody working together to help each other achieve their genealogy goals. There's people from all over the world. I have ancestors from lots of different countries. And so if I need help in Norway, for instance, there are people from Norway who have experience with Norwegian records who I can ask for help from, and they generously will give me help on how to use those records or reading the records for me and help me grow my tree. And I'd say the other goal is to connect everyone in the world through this shared tree. WikiTree is what's called a one world tree, which means there's only one profile for every person who ever existed. And we share those profiles together and we work on them together. And so, because there's only one profile and everybody's connected like a web, there's a great feature on there called the connection finder where we can click a button and see how we're related to every person who's also on WikiTree. It's my absolute favorite feature of the website.
I love that. That's so neat. It's really interesting when you start to find out you're related to so many people you didn't know. Like my husband and I are ninth cousins. Who knew?
And I have to tell you a really quick story of how this connection works. A couple years ago, we started something called the CC7, and that basically means everybody who's connected to us through marriage or blood within 7 degrees of ourselves. And our goal is to go in and grow different spots in our tree within 7 degrees, add more people so that we have more connection points. And I was working on that for my own family one day. I was working on my great uncle's family, adding his family. And all of a sudden, I came across this familiar name in an obituary. I have a friend who lives in Oregon, and I talk to her dad on a regular basis, and it was his name. And I was like, no, it can't be. So I send him a message and I said, do you know my great uncle? And he's like, yeah. And we start talking, and it turns out he and I are related through marriage through my great uncle. And we grew up going to the same beach house that my uncle owned. And we had the same shared childhood stories. We had no clue that we were related all this time, but it was because working on WikiTree and doing the connection that I discovered I was related to him. And now we have this, whole new connection and experience with each other.
Wow. That is really fun.
I know. I'm still in awe.
That's so fun. One of the values of doing DNA and genealogy, right?
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these features on WikiTree for DNA. And can you tell us about recording DNA confirmed relationships?
Yes, two things about DNA on WikiTree that are really important to know before we talk about any of the features. Number one is we don't upload raw DNA to WikiTree. For instance, if you have an Ancestry DNA test, you can go and upload it for free over at MyHeritage. We don't upload the DNA. We actually just list the tests that we take for comparison reasons. So you're not going to get DNA matches at WikiTree. The second thing to know is there are 7 levels of privacy on WikiTree for each profile. So if you're brand new to WikiTree and you're just opening an account, go to the privacy tab on your profile and look at those privacy options. And the reason I'm mentioning this is there are only 2 privacy options that allow the DNA features to work. If you choose to have the highest privacy level, which is red, your DNA features won't work for you. So check that out before you get started.
Oh, thank you. That's a great tip.
And so we were talking about DNA confirmation. Oh, one of my favorite of the DNA features. We have what we call radio buttons where you can click confirmed, uncertain on all the data on a person's profile. And so when you add parents, you can click confirmed, not certain, or you can click confirmed with DNA up to the second great grandparent generation if you write DNA confirmation statements. And there's a help page that helps you. There's a template for it. So all you do is you take the template and fill in the information for your DNA matches that you use to confirm the relationships. You put that DNA confirmation statement on the page and you click the radio button that says confirm with DNA. And once you do that, your tree will have a DNA confirmed flag for each of those relationships going up your tree. And it's very exciting to see your tree with these DNA confirmation flags.
Oh, wow. That is so neat. And it sounds like it is pretty easy. You've made it user friendly.
Yes.
Wow. So let me see if I got this understood correctly. You can click the confirmed with DNA and you have to add the matches that you used.
So there's a template of the statement that you need to place on the profile before you click the confirm with DNA button, and you don't name the actual DNA match because that's private information. We write it in an anonymized way, so we might say Emma and her third cousin instead
Mm-hmm.
of the name of the exact match.
Nice.
So once you place that confirmation statement on the profile in the sources section, you can click that confirm with DNA radio button and then click save, and that flag will appear.
Okay. I like that. So the next feature I want to ask about in the list of DNA features is the one about DNA tests, recording tests. So how does that work?
Yes. And so this is what I mentioned, that we don't upload the DNA. We actually record the tests instead. And so when you're on your own personal profile, it's under your Wiki ID in the menu. You just click the word DNA and it will take you to the place where you input all the DNA tests that you've taken. And this will then show up on your personal profile as a list over onto the side. And so anybody who comes along your profile, maybe they see a familiar last name or they see that you share an ancestor in the tree, then they can see which tests you've taken. And they can go check out their test, like if you've both taken ancestry, and they can see if you're a DNA match.
I love that. So basically, you can come into your own personal profile and add the DNA tests you've taken, but you can't add that for other people, right? Like if I test my brother.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because that's important to know. For living people, the only people who can add DNA test information is themselves if they are a WikiTree member. You can't add information for any other living people. If they're deceased, like my father's deceased, I was able to add his DNA information on his deceased profile.
Yeah, I need to go and do that for my grandparents that I've tested, and two of them have passed away now. So I could add the DNA test that they've taken to their profiles.
Yes. I don't think I mentioned this, but once you've added that test information, it will then filter in through 8 degrees of your related family in the tree. So if you don't have a tree on WikiTree, if you haven't added any family, your DNA isn't going to do anything for you. It's really important to add as much family as you can so that that DNA can filter as far as it possibly can go through your tree. And so, for example, if I go to my second great grandfather's profile right now, I will see my DNA test information listed up in the upper right hand corner. And I will see any other people within 8 degrees who have also listed their test information in that same list. So it's really cool because I can go to his profile and see all the people within 8 degrees who should be related to him genetically who have taken a DNA test.
That is so amazing. So that kind of goes into the next feature that I think Diana was going to ask you about next.
Yes, I was just thinking that I have taken a mitochondrial DNA test. And so can we put our haplogroups out there? How do we deal with Y DNA and mitochondrial DNA?
Yes, and it works the same-ish for Y and mitochondrial. You list the DNA test the same way. When you input it, it knows that it's a Y or a mitochondrial. And so if it's a Y DNA test, instead of filtering through just 8 generations, it's going to go up the Y line of the
Mhm.
tree. So it goes paternal, paternal, paternal up all the way as far as your tree goes. And then the mitochondrial will do the same on the mother's side, all the way up mom to mom to mom to mom as far as the tree goes.
So the really neat thing is we could look at any of the ancestors that we share with other people, and maybe we don't have anyone that could do a Y DNA or a mitochondrial DNA test, but we could see that there was someone coming down through the appropriate line that has taken it,
Yes,
and we could
absolutely.
connect with them. Oh, that would be wonderful.
Another way of looking at this, I was on my grandfather's profile and I noticed a mitochondrial DNA test was listed on there. And I'm like, wait, what? Who's that? Because it wasn't mine. And so I looked at the person who took the maternal DNA test and I went and looked at his tree up his maternal line. And sure enough, he shared a maternal ancestor with my grandfather. And I was able to compare how those two gentlemen were related to each other.
That is awesome.
With the Y going up from the test taker, does it then also go back down from the most distant Y ancestor down the patrilineal lines going forward in time?
So, for instance, let's take my grandfather, for example. If I had taken a Y-DNA test, it would go from dad to my grandfather. And I think what you mean is my grandfather to a different son.
Mm-hmm.
No, it does not go backwards that way. It goes only upwards from the test taker.
Thank you. That's so helpful. So, another feature listed on our lovely DNA features at WikiTree article is DNA test connections for surnames. So, what is that?
So, this feature is helpful if you have an unusual surname. It's funny because on the help page, they list the surname of Smith. I would say that's the least helpful
Yeah.
surname to
Common
go
surname.
to go to see. Oh, let's see all the people who have the last name of Smith who have tested. Yeah, that's not going to help you a whole lot. But I run 2 surname studies on WikiTree. One is Zornes, Zornes, and one is Van Orden. And I know that every single person who comes to WikiTree with that last name is related to me through those 2 surnames because everybody in America with those last names are related to each other. So that's a case where I can click. I'm trying to open this right now, but because it's Smith, it's taking a long time to load. There's like hundreds of thousands of Smiths on WikiTree because I wanted to talk you through it as I was actually looking at it. But basically, what it does is it gives you a list of everybody with that last name who's a WikiTree member. Yeah, it's timed out. That is too funny. I need to mention to them to pick a different surname.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Something not as common as Smith.
It will give you a list of all the here we go. Okay, it came up. Yay. 359,000 DNA test connections for people with the last name of Smith. And so it lists not just the people who have taken the test, but any profiles on WikiTree with the last name of Smith that has DNA test information on there. So again, if you're using a more unusual last name like Zorns, and I can change that in the URL when I go to this to Zorns, it will show me all the profiles with potential cousins who have tested with that last name in their tree.
Awesome. That's really good to know that you can go look up a list of all the people with a surname who have taken a DNA test. And I just became a project administrator, a co-admin for the Dyer YDNA surname project. And this would just be a great way to find people to take additional tests for a surname project like that.
And if you like my Zorns family, I have a mystery farther back. We have 2 sets of parents that we can't decide which are the correct ancestors. So this would be a great chance to talk to all the people who have taken DNA tests and ask them, hey, can we compare notes? Can we compare our DNA and see if we can solve this mystery using DNA?
Okay, lots of potential here. So, can you explain to us what the section Illustrations of DNA Inheritance means?
This is basically just a snapshot of what we talked about, the DNA filtering through 8 degrees. And it just basically it's a snapshot of what that looks like. It's all on one page for you.
Nice. So I can go see every person that has the DNA from my test out to all my
Yes.
ancestors.
It also lists the mitochondrial and the Y if you've added those tests. And it also has an X chromosome section. So if you're interested in looking at the pattern of X chromosome in your tree, it has that listed out and who that would be.
I really like that because that is way more difficult to figure out. Mitochondrial inheritance isn't as difficult or Y DNA, but X inheritance gets really
Mhm.
tricky. And so that's a great feature.
And one thing to note is on this list, it has percentages for each of these people, and it's important to know that those percentages is expected amount of shared DNA with this person. So, for instance, your sibling, it'll show 50% shared DNA. Well, that doesn't mean you share 50% with them. It means that's what's expected to share with them.
Right. Just it gives us a ballpark.
Mhm.
Great. While we were talking about this, I was just checking some things. I thought I had remembered seeing that mitochondrial and Y tests came down the line. And so
Am
on
I
the page,
wrong?
yeah, on the page DNA test connections, it does say that. So I was really excited because I thought that was a feature and it was really cool. So I was hoping that you were
So now
wrong.
I'm gonna have to go check that out because I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, so let me just read it then. There's a help page called DNA Test Connection that goes over that feature, and it talks about how if you've done the autosomal test, it connects it to all of your blood relatives out to 8 degrees of separation, which is up to sixth great grandparents and out to third cousins. And then for Y chromosome, it says if a male on WikiTree has taken a Y chromosome DNA test, we go all the way up the direct paternal line, father to father, to find the test taker's earliest known paternal grandfather. Then, starting with this earliest known paternal grandfather, we go down all the direct male lines, not just the test taker's own line. And the system includes all sons and it skips all daughters and profiles without a specified sex at birth.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's how it
So
ended up on my grandfather's profile. Okay.
right?
The
Okay, so that makes
mitochondrial.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that makes more sense too, because I was wondering like, "Oh, well, how did he get mitochondrial DNA tested if he's probably already deceased?"
Yeah. So you just taught me something new. That's fabulous.
Well, this was, like, the only thing that I knew about the features that WikiTree saw. Anyways, I just think it's really, really helpful for finding those haplogroups of our relatives, like you said, that we don't necessarily know all of the cousins who could have taken that test, especially those really distant ones that are like, eighth cousins, but
Right.
we can trace our Y lines back that far and connect up.
Now, one thing to really stress here is this is based on tree. So if the tree is inaccurate, the DNA is inaccurate. So it's really important to weigh that. Okay, I see this Y goes all the way out to this person and has filtered down. That's definitely my Y ancestor. Well, you need to make sure the paper trail is correct as well in the tree.
Yeah, such a good point that if we don't understand how these connections work on WikiTree, we might come to a flawed conclusion like that. So it's good to go to the original test taker, and which is such a great part of WikiTree is that you can,
Yes.
see the name of the tester and see the test they took and then see their line going back.
Yeah. And go see if your DNA matches with each other on the
Mhm.
same test.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I very first did when I learned about WikiTree's DNA tools is I had a hypothesized Dyer ancestor that I wondered if he was the father of our brick wall on the Dyer line. And there were like 8 people who said they descended from this guy. I think it was like James Monroe Dyer or something like that. And he had a lot of descendants who had tested and they had their GEDmatch kit numbers. Well, I have 3, my father-in-law and his 2 brothers who are on GEDmatch. So I just compared the brothers with all the descendants of this James Monroe Dyer. None of
Mhm.
them matched each other at all. So I thought, okay,
Mm.
maybe I'll move on to another hypothesis for now. Oh,
And that's the beauty of having DNA on WikiTree is you have the ability to do that.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. All right, what is this DNA inheritance widget thing?
I looked at this and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I believe it's a widget you can put on your own website that gives you that snapshot of your DNA and your tree. And this is a great time to talk about the fact that WikiTree has a zillion features. And there's really no way to get to know all the features unless you just go and you play with all of them. When you're brand new to WikiTree, click on every single link, see where it goes, see what it does for you. You cannot break WikiTree. And so this is one of those features where you can just click on it and see what code it gives you for a widget and see if you want to insert that somewhere on your website and just play with it and see if it gives you what you need.
Thank you. That's cool.
I love it that you have the whole code right there to put right into your blog post or whatever you have on your website. So many fun features, and I think that you are so right in saying you just have to click and you have to try everything to see what you can do there. Well, there's another feature called List of Potential Test Takers and DNA Descendants Pages of My Cousins that I'm curious about.
So the first one, it gives you a descendants view, and obviously you're going to know all your descendants, so you really don't need the descendants so much.
Is that actually for like an ancestor, a list of all of their descendants?
Everyone has a descendants page. So the first example they show you here is Thomas Roberts. I'm guessing he was born around 1820. And there's a button when you go to any profile, you can click on it. It says it's a green button. It says descendants. And when you click on that, it shows you all the way down as far as WikiTree takes you of all the descendants for that person. So that's a potential way of finding descendants who could test, especially like this first one I clicked on, they're showing you the Y line.
Oh,
If
nice.
you're looking for someone to take a Y-DNA test, this is a great way
Yeah.
to find someone who could potentially test. This example they gave, there's several people here who are living. And so I can go click over to their profile and talk to them and see if, they'd be willing to test. The My Cousins is a different page. And I believe this gives you your CC7 that I talked about, and that's within 7 degrees. But this gives it to just your cousins through common ancestors, so it's not through marriage. And so you just look through this list and you find people who are living members of WikiTree. Maybe you want to talk to them about taking a DNA test if they're related to you through a specific ancestor that you want to work on.
I think descendancy views are so helpful. And I often go over to Family Search Family Tree to look at descendancy, but this is really fast and easy. And it gives us
Mm-hmm.
the added value of showing people who've actually tested and being
Yes.
able to click on their profile, see where they've tested, and connect with them. So,
And just being able to see it with a click of a button, oh,
mhm.
so nice and easy.
It really is.
Yeah, I clicked on that example, Thomas Roberts descendants, and then scrolling down, it's got the X chromosome descendants. So that's really cool too, that if you
Mhm.
really want to compare X DNA, this could help find a potential test taker for that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, X chromosome is tricky the way that it's inherited, and so it's great that it lists it out for you here.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, this episode is brought to you by newspapers.com. Discover your mom in the newspaper when you search newspapers.com. Find the stories that made her who she is today by searching the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers.com makes it easy to find your mom, grandma, and others in the papers. Search more than 945 million pages from major news titles to small town papers. Uncover birth and marriage announcements, obituaries, photos, and much, much more. Explore papers dating back to 1690 or as recent as last month. Newspapers.com is used by millions of people every month for genealogy, historical research, and more. Find something you like with newspapers.com. It's a snap to save and share articles with family and friends, or attach them directly to your ancestry tree. Use promo code FamilyLocket for a 20% discount on your subscription. That's code FamilyLocket and celebrate the stories of a lifetime with newspapers.com. Okay, well, our next DNA feature to discuss is called privacy controlled trees and lists to share with DNA matches. So tell us what that can do.
So that's the beauty of having DNA features on WikiTree. It's standardized and privacy controlled, when you go in and you list your information. So it's easy to share your tree with strangers and not be afraid that you're sharing something you shouldn't be sharing as far as DNA test information. So my second great grandfather, again, I can share his profile with him. It has the DNA testers listed over to the side, but that's controlled information. It's what they've chosen to share, and it's not giving anything private away. I don't know if you guys know this, but on GetMatch, you can connect your WikiTree tree on your GetMatch account and it'll have a link. So when someone goes and searches for all their matches on GetMatch, if you have a WikiTree tree that's linked, they can just click over to your tree and easily see that, which is so, so nice.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it makes it easier to handle the privacy issues at WikiTree.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's easy to share with people. That's
Very
really nice.
easy to share. As a matter of fact, WikiTree is my public tree. Anytime I want to talk to someone about my tree, I send them to my WikiTree. If I want to do speculative work on my tree, I do that in a private ancestry tree that nobody can see because I don't want anybody copying information that might not be correct.
Right. It's good to have those two defined clearly in your mind so you know
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. Well, there's another feature here that I'm really interested in. It's called the Enhanced Relationship Finder for matches, including triangulation.
So this takes us to my very, very, very favorite feature on WikiTree, which is the relationship finder. I mentioned if you go to the bottom of any profile, there's a button you can click that says, tell me how I'm related to this person. I'm just going to compare it to Abraham Lincoln because I know I'm related to him somehow. And if I go to the bottom of his profile, I'm going to click the link that says your genealogical relationship. There's two different links. One is my connection, which could be through marriage, and what is my genealogical relationship? And I want that because it'll show me through blood how I'm related to him. Usually you're connected to someone in multiple ways. And if I go to Abraham Lincoln, for example, and there's a drop down over on the left, and it'll show me all the different ways that I'm potentially related to him.
It sounds like if you find out that you share a segment of autosomal DNA with two or more other people who also match each other on that segment, then you can triangulate. But if the relationship finder finds more than one common ancestor for two people, you can filter the common ancestors by adding a third, fourth, or fifth person. So it's trying to help you with that triangulation process.
There's an advanced filtering feature over on the right. I can add another person in.
So you can take three people and say, find our common ancestor. Three
Yes.
people on
Oh,
WikiTree. Well, I had never heard of this. This is going to be interesting. So let's say we have three people who all just on paper descend from the same ancestor, and we
mhm.
find we do share a segment of DNA. Then boom, we triangulate. But sometimes we see we share a segment of DNA with people, but we don't know the common ancestor yet. So then we can put them in here as if they're all on WikiTree, and then we can use the relationship finder to find the
Yeah,
common
it's
ancestors.
something to play around with and see what that can. I'm going to play with it today and see what that does for me because I know I have lots of cousins on WikiTree, so I can put them in there and see what that shows for us.
This might also be a way to test your tree completeness and see if you are sharing in more than one way with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you have your lines going back to a similar location and you maybe think you've got two or three shared ancestors way back, maybe this would help to find those. I wonder if it would bring up both of them or all three of them or however many you share.
In some populations, like we have a very large population of Quebecois members on WikiTree, and we're all related. We're at least ninth cousins to each other. So when we do the relationship finder and it says over, there's that drop down over on the left that shows all the different ways we could be related. The list is long
Oh,
of all our potential ancestors with each other. So it is great to see, okay, you're related to them this way, but there's these 10 other ways you're also related to them. So when it comes to DNA, that's really important to know that DNA that you're sharing may not be through the ancestor you think.
Right.
wow. That could be really helpful for people who live in communities with a lot of pedigree collapse to really understand, okay, here's how I'm related to this person in 4 different ways.
Yes.
Let's talk about this next feature, DNA ancestor confirmation aid.
I, at the beginning, talked about those DNA flags that are created when we click confirmed with DNA. And this is a snapshot of all the people in your tree that you have confirmed with DNA. And it shows you the ones that are not yet confirmed with DNA. So it's really kind of a visual, another way of looking at it than from a tree view.
Nice. That's fun. I like the check marks.
Mm-hmm.
It really gives you the motivation to go through and check off some more people.
I have one second great grandparent not yet confirmed with DNA, and it's just killing me.
Oh. Yeah, so it looks like it goes up to third great grandparents, and then you can expand up with more using the arrows.
Yes, and it's important to know that once you get past the second great grandparents, there's a different kind of DNA confirmation statement that you need to write, and this is where triangulation and shared segments comes into play, and you need to know DNA at a higher level in order to make those kind of confirmations.
Mhm. Yeah, I like these examples. It's so helpful to see examples of these confirmation statements on this example page. So, everyone listening, go to the show notes and click on the link to the DNA features page, and then you can click on the DNA ancestor confirmation aid for Peter Roberts to see an example of this.
Well, and I really like that it helps you understand which confirmation you should be using. So it says, do you have a match? Do you know your relationship? What type of test are you using? It gives you some help to figure out what you're doing here. So this definitely is got a little bit of a learning curve, but I can see that whoever developed it has really tried hard to make it pretty user friendly.
There's also an app, and I wish I could quickly tell you where to find it. I can find it for you later, that will write the confirmation statement for you if you just fill in the information. This is kind of a newer WikiTree app that's available.
Ooh, fun.
It sounds like it has to do with AI helping us with that.
Well,
So.
we in the last 2 years, we have users who are great app creators, and they've created zillions of apps for us on WikiTree to do many, many, many different things. It's just trying to figure out where they are. It's
Interesting.
the
Interesting.
challenge.
All right. So we are getting to the end of this list. We've talked about so many fun things, but there is something here called DNA categorization for projects. So what does that mean?
Categorization on WikiTree is a little bit like tags, but they're linked tags, and you can put these on all the profiles. And when you click on the link, it takes you to a page that has all the profiles listed with that category on there. And so this is a potential thing that could be used for your DNA project. You could create a category specific to your needs and put it on all the profiles. So all the profiles you're working on are linked together in this category. We also have space pages. That's a unique feature of WikiTree. It's a workspace where you could also work on your DNA project on WikiTree. And so this is just something to explore. Not a lot of people use it because, the space pages might be a better way to go where you can just put a lot of information on there.
We talked about those in our previous episode with Betsy Coe, and we were like so excited to hear about these space profiles where you can just kind of do anything you want.
Yes.
And you can put in like, I'm looking for test takers for this, and then just send that link out to people, and then have a bunch of different links to things within WikiTree that are supporting the project that you're doing.
And the number of space pages is unlimited, so you can just keep creating them as you need them.
Pretty awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Well, that was a great list of DNA features. Tell us for our last discussion, tell us about this G2G forum and how we can discuss questions and learn more about DNA at WikiTree there.
So the beauty of WikiTree is we are a community, and we work together to help each other on our genealogy, our DNA projects, whatever it is we're working on. So we have a forum called G2G, which stands for genealogist to genealogist, and we can go on there and we can ask for help with absolutely anything you can imagine for genealogy. So if you have a DNA question, you're not understanding something, or you're trying to compare some family Whatever it is, you can go on there and you can ask, just make sure to tag it DNA so that the people who follow that tag and are more knowledgeable in DNA will be the ones to come by and answer your question. When it comes to DNA, you just need to be careful because it's against the terms of service on WikiTree to talk about living people. So make sure that your questions are not mentioning DNA matches by name, etc. But lots and lots of people who are knowledgeable about how to use DNA will help you with your questions.
That's awesome. It's really cool to see that WikiTree has these wonderful collaboration and community features to help us learn from each other and also to grow the family tree and grow the one big tree bigger and more accurately. So I love it.
Mhm. And that is the end goal, is to have the most accurate tree. And of course, how do you get the most accurate tree? By using DNA.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and walking us through and being willing to just jump in with us to discover some things that are a little bit hidden there with the DNA tools. So it has been so fun.
It's been my pleasure.
Well, thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening. And we hope you go check out some of these DNA features on WikiTree and see what you can do with that. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you for listening. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your research. If you want to learn more, purchase our books, Research Like a Pro and Research Like a Pro with DNA on Amazon.com and other booksellers. You can also register for our online courses or study groups of the same names. Learn more at familylocket.com/services. To share your progress and ask questions, join our private Facebook group by sending us your book receipt or joining our courses. To get updates in your email inbox each Monday, subscribe to our newsletter at familylocket.com/newsletter. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We read each review and are so thankful for them. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.